A gorgeous song. And what a gorgeous gathering music for those of you who missed it. It was extraordinary, so joyful. Thank you for selecting those. So today, the sermon that I chose, or the topic that I chose, I called it The Dark Lover's Call, a sermon on fugitive joy and divine play. And again, for me to be honest and transparent, as I started kind of thinking about, okay, so what am I going to speak this time? I really felt this inside me, this desire for sweetness, this craving for sweetness. Like, I feel like I've been for so long being caught up in what's wrong in this world, all that's burning, all that's broken. And something in me is starting or was starting to feel really kind of, in our seminary, we have invented a couple of words, crispy or crunchy. You know, something in me felt like crunchy. Like it's not quite soft and settled. And so when I asked myself, what is it that I'm needing? What is it that I'm craving? It was sweetness. So I was like, okay, how can I speak about sweetness with this community? Because if I am feeling crunchy, I'm sure a lot of others are too. So that's what I'm going to try and share with you today. And I will start with a little song from my tradition. And I'll tell you about the song. And I'll just sing the first line, just to kind of get us in that mood. This is how the song goes. Rum chum chum chum, rum chum chum, খেজুর পাতায় নূপুরও বাজে, কে যায়, rum chum chum chum, rum chum chum. And the words come from actually the national poet of Bangladesh now, the Qazi Nazrul Islam. And the translation is, the anklet rings among the date palm fronds. Who goes? So that's the question today. Who goes? And we know that to ask this question, to really ask this question, we need to slow way down, need to lower the decibel around us. Because this is not a clarion call. This is not something that insists, or maybe it insists, but in a different way. It's a call from the margins, from the beings who live at the edge of our awareness. We could ignore it, or we could stop and really turn towards that call and say, ke jai, who goes? And if we do, our life can be turned upside down. Everything that is normal about our lives, everything that is respectable, can be shattered and thrown in the dirt. This is what spring offers, this ringing anklet of the beloved, the flute song that's coming from the edge of the forest. And this is how it sounds. Rum chum chum chum, rum chum chum. It's the anklets as the beloved runs on the palm fronds. Who goes? So this is an interesting time of the year, as we know that this has been a strange year in so many ways. But lately it's been strange because we had Ramadan and the beginning of Lent and the Chinese New Year and different kinds of astrological configurations all at the same time. And in my country, where I come from, India, people are preparing to celebrate spring The celebration happens in early March. It's called Holi, and it's a festival of colors where you throw colored powders and colored water on each other, and there's a big celebration. But I want to talk to you specifically about a type of Holi, a variation on Holi that is celebrated in a specific place in Bengal, where I come from, and that is at Shantiniketan. So for those of you who do not know about Shantiniketan is, by the way, Shantiniketan literally translates to abode of peace. And it's a university that was founded by Rabindranath Tagore, who is Bengal's most beloved poet. He was the first non-European to receive a Nobel Prize in 1913. And his Nobel Prize was for his collection of poetry. It was called Gitanjali. And Gitanjali, again, translation is offering of songs or song offerings. So it was a collection of songs, devotional songs, love songs, in the midst of colonized India. And Tagore was very much involved in the freedom movement of India, but his way of doing it was quite different. It was through songs, through love, through, we'll talk more about it. But in terms of this spring festival, Holi, in Shantiniketan, they celebrate it as what's called Basantutsav or Basuntotsav in my language. It depends on how you're saying it, but it's the spring festival. And on this day, the students wear yellow, because in Bengali we say Bashanti. Bashanti is that color of early spring, that kind of golden egg yolk yellow. So the students will dress in that. They will put a flower called palash, which is a big, bright red flower, in their hair. And they dance among the big trees on the campus, is the sal trees. And they throw this colored powder, abir, at each other. And the whole place kind of lifts. And they play this kind of drum, which is called madol. And this whole practice of Bashant Utsav came from the local indigenous people who lived on that land before Tagore's father actually bought the land and Tagore created the university. So these people are called Shautal in Bengali, and in English, if you see their name, they're written as Santal, Santhal, but in Bengali, we pronounce them as Shautal. So these are people who have lived on this land forever. And when Tagore's father first bought the land, the story is actually beautiful, like his father, Devendranath Tagore. So Tagore, again, is an anglicized, so I constantly kind of switch between the two. So Tagore is the anglicized version of the name. In Bengali, we say Thakur. So Rabindranath Thakur is how I would say it if I spoke in Bengali. So his father, Mahorshi Devendranath Thakur, they were landowners. And he was going on a boat, and he saw this land from the boat. And this was this quiet, forested land. And there was this two big trees that kind of stood out. And he said, oh, I think I want to get that land because there's something about it that feels very peaceful. And he called it Shantiniketan, the abode of peace. So he bought it. And then in early 1900s, his son, Rabindranath Tagore, thought that this would be a wonderful place to create a university. And but this whole tradition of the Basantotsav, this is actually a direct learning from the local indigenous people, the Shautals, because this is how they have always celebrated spring. There is this tree called mahua in there, and there's a specific, so the mahua flowers are abundant in early spring, so they make liquor from this flower. So they get intoxicated on this thing. They play this drum called mahua, and they sing all night and dance with palash flower in their hair. So Tagore, who is this highly educated, Nobel Prize winning person, did not try to impose what he had learned, but he said, okay, teach me. I want to learn from you how you celebrate spring. Because one of the things that he noticed is that these are people who sing and dance and live with their entire body. They are not in the head, unlike the educated urban people from where he came. And the other interesting thing is, and just to kind of give you a context of this place where this university is, as I said, it's Shantiniketan is the name of the place. The university is called Bishwabharati. And Bishwabharati is composed of, again, two parts. Bishwa, which means world, and Bharati is that of India. So it is an Indian university that brings in the world or invites the world in. So that was always his concept of this, something that is very particular, very vernacular, very located in space, but always open to the world. And that's how this university was created. And that's its whole, because his idea was that we're going to bring education back in the old model where students would study under the trees in open air. And the science department and the arts department would collaborate. And so the scientists would develop new materials, which then the sculptors would take and sculpt. So that was the image. And of course, in reality, some of it happened, some of it didn't happen, but some extraordinary experiments happened in that place. And this place is located in this part of India, which is actually like 200 miles outside of Kolkata. And it's in the Red Hills. So this is called Khwai in the local language of the indigenous people, which is kind of eroded red soil. And there's a river that flows through it, the Kopai River, and there's this forest called Shonajhuri. Again, how do I translate? Shona is gold, and Churi is this little sprinkling. So it's like the sprinklings of gold is the old name of this forest. So this is the land where this community has lived forever. And when Tagore started to create this university, his idea was, let us not create something that is closed off. Let us create something that is in living conversation with this place and the people who live here. Let's learn from them, how they dance, how they sing. Many of the famous artists from this university have used Chautal women as their, or Chautal families and their villages as kind of the inspiration for art. So it's a very bidirectional process. And one of the things that, so we're starting, so this Bashant Utsav started about 1920. And just to kind of, again, give you a context of 1920 in India, that's when Gandhi had just started his non-cooperation movement. There was a strong ethos in the country of this is time for the British to leave. And they wouldn't leave for another 27 years, but the movement had started and the empire had started to clamp down. So there were arrests, there were executions, there were armed rebellions, and then Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, which was the peaceful aspect of it. And so Tagore kind of had this moment of like, and what do we do as a university? How do we respond to this moment? And one of the ways they chose to respond to the moment is, let us become fugitive. Let us become so illegible to the system that the system won't even know how to deal with us. Because the Chautals, for example, one of the things that you will often not hear is that when the British colonized India, the group of people they had the hardest time colonizing were the tribal people, the indigenous people, because their lifestyle is so very different that the system doesn't know how to parse it. So they kind of like stay away. Oh, they're not dangerous. They don't have technology. They're not going to build the next iteration of the gun and kill us. So we can just forget about them. So Tagore's response was, let's see what we can learn from them. Let's create this festival. You want to kill us? We will dance. and we will throw colored powder at each other. And if you come, we'll throw it at you too. In fact, it's interesting that Shantiniketan was first, the very founding of Shantiniketan was, there were 7 teachers and like 5 students. One of them was Tagore's son. And of the 7 teachers, there were 3 Christians, one of them a British man. And then Tagore himself was a Brahmin, and then there were other people from other Hindu religions. I don't know whether there was somebody Muslim in that first cohort of 7, but he kind of had that from the very beginning, that this is a place where we're just not going to buy into the mythos that is being propagated by the empire. We're going to live a different myth. And the Bashant Utsav came almost as a rebellion against, you must fight violence with violence. So that's kind of a beautiful story for me, where here's this man who by this time was recognized. He was a Nobel laureate. He could have lived in luxury and sided with the powers, that instead he chose to go to the margin because he heard that call. Who goes? And he said, I want to respond to that call. So that's that part. Now, what is this spring festival? What is this Holi? What's the story behind it? So it all comes. It's all kind of the mythology behind it is that of Krishna, the lover god, the trickster god, the god who plays his flute and wears anklets, and you can hear when he's running in the forest, you can hear his footsteps because of those anklets ringing. And what he does is he calls you out from the center, from your comfortable life, into impropriety, into profanity. He's not a clean God. He's not a respectable God. Like one of the stories is, so the way, there's this idea of divine love and divine play, and it's called Leela. Leela is divine play. And in Leela, so one way that the story is told is that Krishna is kind of a trickster. So the milkmaids, the gopis, are bathing in the river, and he steals their clothes that they had left on the tree. So they have to come out of the water naked to get their clothes. And that was his fun. And this is called Ras Leela. So what is, so the question is like, what is this Leela offering us? And my sense is it's offering us sweetness. That's that sweet love, that, because it is said that when Ras Leela happened, when the gopis were dancing in a circle with Krishna, and sometimes Radha would join, and we'll talk about Radha. Actually, we can talk about Radha now. Radha is an interesting, so Radha Krishna is often spoken together, but they are not a couple. Radha is a married woman. In fact, married to the local king. And she hears his flute and decides to go to the forest to dance with the milkmaids. And this is called Ras Leela. And the way these stories are told is that as they're dancing in a circle with Krishna, each one of them feels like Krishna is dancing just with them. This is their dance, whether it's Radha, whether it's the gopis. And it's that thing, it's that sweetness, that elixir, that maple syrup, that honey, that sticky sweetness. It's not different from the Shautals drinking their mohua liquor and dancing through the night. It's all this whole-bodied, alive engagement with what is around them. And what's interesting is that as we fully engage, actually, before I do that, I'll tell you another story. So Radha is one story. Another story is Mirabai. Again, you may have heard about her. There's been movies made about her. She's another devotee of Krishna. She's also a royal person, was just married to a king. And she is so in love with Krishna that she doesn't want to be with anybody else. So she is like out in the streets singing and dancing and calling on Krishna. And the husband's family or the groom's family are distraught. Like, how dare she do this? So they send her a cup of poison. She drinks it and keeps dancing. Then they send her a basket, which is a gift. And inside the basket is a poisonous snake. She picks up the snake, she puts it around her neck, she keeps dancing, and people see that it's a garland of flowers. So again, this idea that if we dare engage with this divine lover who lives at the edges, at the margins of our consciousness, nothing can break us. Because what it does, what this call does, it makes the chains irrelevant. It does not break the chains. It's not a military move. It just makes it irrelevant. And this is what happened with the tribal people in India during the British colonization. The empire just could not parse their systems. They could not categorize, they could not control people who live with their whole bodies. They're not trying to find an argument about why colonization is wrong. They're saying, we're going to dance. And how do you deal with that as a colonizing power? And I think there's something here to learn from us. And we actually have seen this recently in Minneapolis. Like when people hold hands and dance, nothing the system can do works. So again, this idea of the call from the margins, call from the trickster God, call from the God who does not really care whether you are proper or improper, but cares very much whether you're alive, whether you're thrumming with life, whether your fingers are sticky with sweetness. That is the call. So one of the things that's also very interesting is that these gods, at least in the Indian mythology, the gods that are in the margins, they're often dark. So we have Krishna, who is described as thunderclouds. Looks like his color is that of thunderclouds. And he has a peacock feather in his head, and he plays the flute. He has anklets in his feet. And we have Kali, who's another of our margin goddesses, who's also black, like thunder again. Or as a Kali devotional song, these are called Shama Shangit, says, she is black like the black of my eye. How can I say she's not my mother? So that. So now, really, the question is for us to think in this community, who is your dark lover? Probably it's not Krishna, and it doesn't have to be. But who is the dark lover who lives in the margin, who's playing his, her, their flute, calling you in? Might be a person, it might be a being, it might be some version of divinity as you understand it. Maybe not. Maybe it's a place that keeps calling you back. A particular stretch of river where you feel most alive. Corner of the woods. Maybe it's a city street at dusk. Some geography, maybe something that you've seen just in a book or on the screen, and it just won't let you go. That could be your Krishna. It could be an art form that you abandoned as a young person because it wasn't practical. Everybody told you couldn't make a living by doing that form of art. The guitar that's gathering dust, the writing that you gave up as you became serious about your career. But something that makes you lose track of time, that is a good sign that it is the divine lover. Makes you lose track of time. It could be a cause that's so close to your heart that it makes your heart go fast, that people tell you it's impractical. It's not strategic. It's not a winnable fight. That could be your dark lover. Or it could be just things, the ways that you've been taught that you're too soft, too much, too intense, too weird. Parts of yourself that you've learned to hide to become respectable. Maybe that's where the call is. It could be a person who really sees you for who you are, and invites you to be more alive than you knew it was possible. Even when it's complicated, and especially when it's complicated. Something that doesn't fit in your life's plan. That could be the dark lover. Or it could be just something that has no form at all. Just that persistent, quiet call. The one you keep dismissing because you're too busy, too responsible, too committed to fix what's broken. Like all of us. So the question again is not, do you hear Krishna's flute? But what's your version of this call? What rings at the edges of your awareness that you keep ignoring? And this is important. What would you have to risk to turn towards it? So again, we have that song. Rum jum 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 rum jum jum khejur patay nupuru baje ke jai. Who goes with that anklet sound? The flute is at the forest's edge. The drum is beating. There's laughter in the darkness. Sound of those palash flowers opening. The shoutouts dancing drunk on mahua. The invitation to come to the margins where we refuse to play the game of the empire and instead play Leela. We dance with the beloved. The dark lover is calling, beautiful, dark-skinned, irresistible, playful. Not because he'll keep you safe, but because he'll call you into being more alive than you knew was possible. At the margins where chains become irrelevant and snakes become garlands, and the empire becomes meaningless because you're dancing. Who goes? Can you hear it? Will you turn towards the margins? Will you go? That's the call.